Hey, Frog fans, welcome back to another episode of Talking Frogs, episode 6, here at Roxo Media House in the Flying T Studios. I am your host, Jamie Plunkett, and today I have two incredible guests with me, two of the brain trust of TCU Barstool, Dawson Gordon and Austin Flanagan. Thank you guys so much for joining me on the pod today.
Thanks, man. I mean, we're just so psyched to be here.
We've got, as you can see, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, Frogs Today YouTube channel, a couple TCU helmets on the table, a little bit of Richard's Rainwater, proud sponsor of the show, on the table as well.
Look at that pop.
That was a nice little pop there.
Ooh, wow. I like that.
Right?
That's good.
It's just still water, and yet they've done so much with it.
Fantastic. And it's, in a can,
bit.
too, so it helps saves the
right.
environment. There you go.
They're capturing the rainwater. They're putting it in recyclable materials. It's obviously a recyclable material for humans as well. It's a good little thing they've got going on over there at Richard's Rainwater. But, gentlemen, I want to talk to you first about you and then about some of the cool things that you guys were doing with TCU Barstool this year. But first and foremost, Dawson and then Austin, how'd you end up at TCU?
Yeah, sure. So I'm from NorCal, the Bay Area suburb in Tiburon, California, and played football in high school. Always loved sports. Big sport guy, and wanted to when it came to college, I just wanted to go somewhere where had big sports and great business school, and not too big of a school, but also not too small. And Greek life too, and TCU just checked off all those boxes, and I narrowed it down to a few schools, and TCU just stood out to me. And my twin sister, she also goes here too, so that's fun. But it's been great, and I just love it so much, and it's been awesome.
It feels like there are so many students who come from California and end up at TCU now. How many folks from Cali have you encountered at TCU?
I'd say it's probably 30 to 40% Californians.
Maybe. Feels like maybe 60 sometimes.
In Greek life, especially, that's where you see a lot of Californians. But yeah,
awesome.
Well, and my twin sister too. So
there's at least one.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
Austin, what about you?
So actually, I'm from Naperville, Illinois, suburb about 45 minutes west of Chicago. And
home of Sam Jackson, I do believe.
It is home of Sam Jackson. He went to my
Jackson.
public high school, Naperville Central, also home of Sean Payton. So
Sam Jackson's cooler.
Some would say. But growing up, I was actually a big TCU fan. My uncle actually played football here.
Okay.
And my aunt was an equestrian rider at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. So growing up, it was TCU in Wisconsin. Wisconsin's a lot more accessible, being in Big Ten country. But something about TCU just stood out to me so much. And when TCU and Wisconsin played in the Rose Bowl, my whole entire family went out there. It was my first time being at a TCU game, first time in California, really. And our whole family had a tailgate. And I said, whoever wins this game, that's where I'm going to college. And we can basically say Tank Carter swiping that pass from Scott Tolzien is the reason why I'm here at TCU. I've been a diehard TCU fan ever since. I still root for the Badgers when I can, but was full steam ahead on TCU, really only considered them in Wisconsin. I got into both schools, and TCU just felt like home. Everything about it, the sports, the sports broadcasting program has been great. And, it's been a home away from home, and I'm truly glad I chose TCU.
So the immaculate deflection is why you're a Horned Frog?
Correct.
That's awesome. I was in the stands for that game, and I can tell you that I had just graduated, right? And so that ages me a little bit. But sitting in the stands, standing there, watching him deflect that pass, that is one of my 3 sports cries that I've ever had, was TCU winning the Rose Bowl. The other 2 are obviously the Texas Rangers winning the pennant for the first time, going to the World Series for the first time, and then Dirk winning a title.
Go Giants.
Okay, listen.
Sorry.
Northern California boy.
I had to slide that one in there.
It's fine. That one doesn't hurt. That World Series doesn't hurt.
I guess
it's the Cardinals one and Nelson Cruz, which will just haunt me in my
David
dreams forever.
Freese has a lot of real estate in your dome.
So much, all of it pretty much still to this day. All right, so guys, Austin, you already kind of mentioned sports broadcasting has been your thing. Dawson, you played football for a little while for
Scout
TCU.
team running back. It was. I had a blast. But yeah, so in high school, I played football. Was a rotator. Didn't really play too much, but I loved it, and I played a little bit. But I just loved the whole brotherhood aspect of the game, and came to TCU. And after my first semester, I realized I want to play college football, and it was something that I always wanted to do. Growing up, my cousin played at USC, and then I just looked up to him so much, and I still do today. But yeah, I mean, I always wanted to play college football, and I knew that I wasn't D1 caliber for what I did during high school. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to learn how to kick. So I just went out to Pascal High School first week of the spring semester in freshman year, and I was just kicking there by myself. Got some like Amazon like crappy balls and
like
little
holder
stick.
things,
Yep,
little
there you go. And guess who was there? Jaden Oberkrom. And when Jaden Oberkrom walked up to me, and I was already watching film on him, that's when I was like, okay, it's time for me to like, this is a sign.
Mm-hmm.
So he trained me, walked on like to the team sophomore year, played 1 year, and then I was like, all right, time to focus on more of the Barstool stuff, but we'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a blast. It was the COVID year, so we went I think 6-4 that year, and one of the best things though from COVID is that the roster, because the roster limit is 125, and for the COVID year they were like, there is no like roster limit, so probably would have been cut if I did not have COVID, so, or if there was no COVID. So shout out COVID.
Didn't get cut. Shout out to COVID. What's your best memory from that year?
Okay, well, there's some funny ones, but I think one that I love to tell the most is first day of fall camp, because I was, a kicker, but I wasn't like, Cal or those guys, right? I was just one of the boys. And they put me at scout team running back. And first day of fall camp, I'm running a counter. I take the step right, going left. The guys are pulling, and Garrett Wallow comes down, cracks me, sends me flying like 4 yards back, and I'm midair. I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, I cannot like be like, I gotta like act like I know what I'm like doing. Like I can't be soft here because I'm like the kicker, right? So I stand up and I yell. I'm like, hey Wallow, you're gonna have to hit me harder if you want to keep me down. And everyone just starts laughing, and then next thing you know, next play, the same thing happens because Marcel Brooks did the same thing to me. But yeah, it was learned a lot. A lot of grit there. So, but yeah, no, a lot of people try to clown on me. It's like, oh, like kicker, like you didn't do that much. Like, no, man, I was Chubba Hubbard for 1 week, right?
There you go.
So there
absolutely,
you go.
Chubba Hubbard for a week got hit by an NFL linebacker.
Yeah.
So, and you're here to tell the story. So that's
I
pretty
am.
nice.
I'm
I don't know
alive.
that I would have survived.
No, yeah,
a hit from
no
Garrett
concussions,
Wallow.
but yeah,
no concussions. Okay,
Yeah.
that's good.
yeah,
Maybe.
I think so.
No tested at least. Okay.
Untested.
So Austin, you've been in sports broadcasting since you stepped foot on campus. You've got, I think you're just wrapping up your radio show and podcast, Frog Pod Live, I believe.
Correct.
This, or I guess by the time of this releasing, you will have just wrapped it up. Tell me a little bit about your experience in sports broadcasting at TCU and what you have loved so much about doing that podcast and having a radio show.
Yeah, so when I came in here to TCU, I knew that sports was going to be a really big part of it, and I wanted to get involved in any way possible. You can ask any one of my friends. I'm a diehard TCU fan. I'm on top of pretty much every TCU sport and watch every game religiously. I take every loss pretty heavily. So I tried to get involved with the radio station prior to COVID, and then COVID happened, so I had to wait some time. And so when it got back to kind of normalcy, I went in there, just DJ'd a little bit, was able to talk with my boss, Jeff Craig, who's the sports manager over there, and slowly but surely like made my way in terms of just covering TCU sports. And then starting this past August, I approached him saying, you guys don't have a sports talk show. I would love to make my podcast, which was then just Frog Pod that I recorded with my friend Alan Taylor in his bedroom randomly. We can bring that podcast to you guys and be a radio show. He's like, sounds good. And we lifted off, and we went a lot from Alan's old Sony computer in his bedroom to actually having like real equipment to be able to go through. And, as we build upon that, it became so much more. I was able to actually get like media credentials for stuff, which I didn't think was ever going to happen. But it's been an awesome experience. Got to interview plenty of people. Made it. Interviewed.
He does a great job.
He does.
By the way. Like he kills it. Like the one with Jeremiah last week. I mean,
Yes.
It was great conversation. You
I
killed
had
it.
Jeremiah Donati. I'm trying to who else have I had on there?
Me.
Gunnar Henderson and Chandler Morris. I slowly began to open up my canister of asking people to come on because more and more people end up listening to. And I was like, okay, I can start to actually ask people to be on my show and comfortably talk to them and have conversations. So they were just, it's been great. KTCU's been an awesome partner. They fully support everything they do. They guide me in places where I might struggle sometimes, and it's made my experience with TCU sports that much better.
Your story arc sounds a lot like that, what the Lumpton Drinking Club is going through right now, starting from recording in one of the guys' offices where they were trying to soundproof the walls in the night to now being here, part of Frogs Today on the Flying T studio. I think it's a testament to two things, right? It's a testament to the hard work that you put in before you got the opportunity, which I think is really admirable. And then, Jeff Craig saying yes. That's a big part of it too.
Big part of it.
But it's the hard work after, right? Mm-hmm. People often think like, oh, they listen to a podcast or they hear the final product and they don't fully understand the amount of work that goes in to producing something at a high quality level. And so as someone who's listened to your pod for a long time and has really appreciated your work, I just want to say right here, great job.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And
you've deserved and earned all of the stuff that you've gotten as a part of this. And it's been really cool to see that growth. And speaking of growth, though, weird segue. We're going to leave it in. Let's talk about attendance at basketball games, because that is the whole reason I wanted to come in and talk to you guys. I wanted you to be able to tell your story, but this is the story that I want folks to listen to and hear. Mm-hmm. When I was a student at TCU from 2005 to 2009, 35 years old now, so nobody has to do any math. I was one of probably 6 or 7 students in the student section watching a TCU basketball team that for the most part really struggled on the court, struggled to get people interested, struggled just to be competitive in any aspect. Jamie Dixon has come in and really turned the tide on what TCU basketball can be. But even up into this year, and COVID had a lot to do with it, I think, the fan base, I don't think, had ever really truly responded the way that we would have seen them respond to a successful football team or even a successful baseball team. And the students especially, I think. But this year, we saw the students break the attendance record 3 times,
Correct.
4 times, something like that. And I know that you guys had a lot. You stopped counting. Humble. You guys had a lot to do with getting students through the door and getting them hyped about TCU basketball. How did that plan start for you guys? And then what went into executing that plan and getting kids in the seats?
Yeah. Well, to kind of backtrack the Barstool thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we took over the page, or I took over the page my sophomore year. So about 3 years ago.
And so sorry to interrupt, to clarify, TCU Barstool is an Instagram account.
Exactly. Twitter, IG, TikTok,
everything.
All the social platforms, and it's affiliate of Barstool Sports.
Yeah.
And there are Barstool pages at every single college. So there's, Barstool Sikkim, there's Barstool.
Mm-hmm. We're not going to talk about that.
Yeah. No, honestly, their content's not that good. Sorry. I'm being honest. But yeah.
TCU Barstool is king.
Yes, it is. Maybe sometimes. But yeah, I took over sophomore year, and then I brought on Austin to run Twitter last year. And Austin and I have just grown super close, and we just work like super well together. Like we just kind of have that same passion for TCU, and there's no like ego like when it comes to making a choice. Like if someone has like the better call, like we go with it, and that's just how it's worked well. But in terms of going to basketball, right? So we've kind of built up these stakeholders with TCU and kind of those connections, and it started with Rory Rutledge. So he is the athletics marketing director. And when we did a snowball fight during the first snow week of last year in 2021, he was the first person to kind of actually make the partnership between TCU and Barstool possible, because he brought out Dixon and a bunch of pizzas to the snowball fight. And then basically I reached out to Jeremiah, and then Jeremiah met and kind of went from there, and did some stuff for football. But then really basketball, it was everyone was telling me, Thomas Monagle or Cam from marketing, everyone was like, TC basketball, like this is our year, like this is like we are gonna make the tournament. I'm like, are we gonna make the tournament? Like
maybe.
It's been a minute, but we were like, okay, you know what? Like, let's do this. Like, let's change the culture, because that's what we've always been about, is like supporting TCU students and kind of just being on the front end of like making change happen. And really it started off with, okay, how do we, start from the beginning of like Big 12 play and then kind of build that just like throughout the year. And that's what the whole tailgate thing was. So do you want to talk about the tailgate a little bit? I feel like I'm talking too much.
No, it's fine. But, you know, me myself, I came from the Chicagoland area, which is a very big basketball area. You know, football is Friday Night Lights is a thing for sure, but the biggest moments you'll have in high school in Chicagoland area pretty much come with high school basketball. And through my first 3 years at TCU, there were definitely games where I had more students in my private high school gym student section than I did at TCU. And that's just the matter of fact. TCU never was a basketball school.
Right.
I never came here thinking that TCU basketball would really be anything. And so me and Dawson started talking, and we got all these transfers, and I was like, all right, these guys could be pretty good. Yeah. And then we get through the season, we get through non-conference, and we're like, okay, we got to have a plan for this first home game versus Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And so we're like, let's do something that no school does, and that's throw a tailgate. The tailgate, honestly, you can attest to this. I thought for the most part it was a success. The only issue was the weather.
It was 30, 36?
30-something degrees. It was cold, but students might not have gone for the tailgate, but everyone obviously showed up for the game, and I think that was our main goal. You know, tailgate wasn't what we wanted to, but our main goal at the end of the day, no matter how the tailgate could have been great, but if students didn't get in the game, then we didn't fulfill our goal.
Exactly, right. And that's why we wanted to do it on campus, because it was right there, and it was the closest spot to the Schulmeyer. And honestly, like the cold weather probably helped it, because, you know, everyone, you know, they went to the tailgate. It was like, dang, it's cold. I'm going to go inside to the Schulmeyer. There you go. And then, I mean, student section during that game was crazy. I mean, I was talking to, I think it was like E-Man like last night, and we're like, man, like there's some games that like if the students didn't show up, like we wouldn't have won that game. And I think that was one of those games. But I think at the same time, it's like we love to help out, but at the same time, like TCU basketball players like are so personable, and they've made it so much like impact on that season. And in terms of getting the students to buy in, I mean, you sit in the like press conferences. I mean, I'm pretty sure like E-Man and Mike and like Eddie, every single post game for a home game, just talk about the students and how much they matter. And students hear that. And when you kind of feel like hey, like I mean something, right? Students are going to show up. But yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, I think, you know, and I just had Eddie and E-Man on my last episode of the podcast alongside a couple of the founders of Flying T Club. And Eddie and E-Man both reiterated that again, to say the support that they got, especially from the students, was so incredibly meaningful, because when students showed up, they wanted to play a little bit harder. And it's the same kind of thing that we heard from the football team all spring when they would do those open practices on Saturdays and fans would show out. You know, after that, all the players were saying, well, we wanted to get a little bit up because, you know, the folks are here. We want to show up for them. But Eddie uses a word that I think is really important all the time. He calls it a family. Right.
For sure.
And you can tell when he says it that he's super genuine about it. Do you guys do you feel the same way? Like, do you feel like this is really a TCU family? Not even just a community or a school, but this is really a TCU family?
Oh, for sure. TCU basketball, just the way that kind of college basketball fits itself and just how it's portrayed and how people can interact, the family aspect is huge, because when Eddie has a big play, you hear on TV and obviously in the stadium, everyone chanting Eddie.
Yeah.
And you know, like, you don't get that at many schools. Like, you can go to Fog Allen, you can go to Assembly Hall, you can go to Cameron Indoor. You're not going to get them chanting specifically at a player the way that we chant it for Eddie Lampkin.
Well, I'll tell you this too. They were chanting Eddie's name at the Mirage Sportsbook against Arizona, because that's where I was watching that basketball game, and I guarantee you they were all hyped for Eddie too.
Yeah.
And my mom loves Eddie.
Vejas too, for the U of A game. I mean, you had you both had some screen time on that game. You had the wonderful purple blazer on.
Yes. Shout out Chancellor Boschini for hooking us up with the purple blazer.
Absolutely. So I want to talk a little bit more about some of the obstacles that you guys faced in building the relationships that you built, because, you know, nationally Barstool has a certain reputation, and it is what it is. You know, you can take it positive or negative or however you want to.
Totally.
But what were some of the obstacles to building the relationships that you guys did on campus, and what were some of the obstacles to getting students to show up to basketball games?
I'd say like alcohol is probably one of them, just because, you know, it's not, I mean, there's a reason that all like frat tailgates are off campus, right?
Right.
So it's hard to bring alcohol on campus, and that was one of the biggest things for the first tailgate.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one thing, and like the perception. You're right. Definitely, some people have like different takes of it, but at the end of the day, it's like we just try to add value, and I can't like control like what other people think, but we just try to tell everyone, hey, like we just want to help the students out, and that's really what our goal is. Like like we're not trying to paint like TCU a certain way that makes it look bad. We just want to have a good time and make an impact. So yeah, did that help out?
Yeah,
there you go.
And I think another part of it was people didn't really buy into TCU basketball for a while, and myself included. I mean, it's hard to buy into a team where you only know 3 of the players that are coming and that will be able to be productive. And I had so many friends, like when I said that, this team, I said I believe in late December, I said the way I think this team can play, we might be able to make a Sweet 16 with the right draw. And everyone said I was crazy. They're like, we can barely make a tournament. So the biggest obstacle outside of the actual schematics was getting people to buy in that this team is actually good. People didn't know that Eddie was going to play like he did this year because he didn't play a lot last year. People didn't know how E-Man was going to be. He wasn't here last year. Damian Ball. You can go on and on and on.
Yeah.
And once people saw the Oklahoma win, once they saw the Iowa State win, they're like, okay, this team is actually not the normal TCU teams we've used to be watching.
Yeah, and I'd add on just one more thing. One more thing that kind of hurt us was Texas, because we had, so I think for OU there was 2,200 or something like that students. Texas 3,700, 3,600. That's pretty close to 40% of our entire student body, and we lost by 22 points.
Got rocked.
So it was like, how do we put a new spin on it, right? Because it's like, but I mean, it's not like football, like where you lose one game and the season's over. But a lot of people were like kind of like, all right, all right, whatever, let's move on to baseball, right? So how do we kind of come up like with a spin to kind of get that buy-in? But it worked out. So,
and we did a lot of like promotions with Coach Dixon and
exactly
some of the players and everything, and
the players are awesome.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes you feel like that could hurt because then the attention's more so like on the crowd aspect and more or less focused on the game. But when you see the repetitiveness of that, and that they're still bought in, they want the students to care no matter win or lose. They still want them to be there because they want to put on a good product for you. Makes it a lot better.
Absolutely. And too, when you start to see, like you said, Austin, the success build and build and build, even in those setbacks like the K-State loss at home when Mike was hurt, or the blown lead at Oklahoma State, the buy-in continues when you see the players being openly thankful for the presence of the students. All right, talk to me about the Storm Chasers, though, because they showed up for the Kansas game.
That was crazy.
It seemed like it was just the wildest opportunity for TCU basketball to start getting recognized on a national scale. And it came on the heels, correct me if I'm wrong, of the Storm Chasers, which for those of you who don't know is a Barstool group that goes around the country looking for opportunities to storm the court when an upset happens on a home court. And they had just been kicked out of Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Yes, correct.
Right? And so the University of Arkansas said, no, thank you. We don't want anything to do with you. And then 5 days later, they're on campus in the student section, storming the court over as TCU beats Kansas, and in the locker room, giving a post-game speech. So talk me through what happened to get them on campus, and then what was that experience like?
Before Dawson dives into this, I wanted to know, I didn't believe it that they were coming for a long time. Like he said, we're getting them, and I was like, there's no way Storm Chasers is coming to TCU. Like, it's just not going to happen. But he could tell the story.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of felt the same way too, but pretty much so the whole thing in Fayetteville happens. They get kicked out, whatever. And I think that was the Saturday or 2 Saturdays before the KU game. So there was, because they, or no, actually it was, it was prior to the Tech game, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
so it was a Saturday because
Right,
Tech was on a Tuesday and Kansas was on a Thursday.
So so as soon as they get kicked out, I text my boss. I'm like, look, we got 2 more games against top 10 teams. I think we have a good shot of winning at least one of them. Didn't know that we win both. And TCU is the best place to come. There's going to be so much like family atmosphere here. Yeah. No one's going to turn them away, whatever. So they forwarded it on to them, and I didn't know anything. And then it's like Tuesday at like 1 p.m. The game's at 7, right? And I get a text like from my boss, and it says, "Hey, like get ready for a post." And I'm like, "What?" And then she just says, "They're coming." I'm like, "Oh, no way, no way." So then, but I didn't have a direct line to Caleb like at that time. But I was just like, "All right, I got to make sure that the front row student section they're all set." So I go to Rory again. Hey, like just need some like tickets, just like for them to get in. So I go grab them tickets, call up Jeremiah, and I'm like, basically, like, hey, like, here's what they do. Here's what's happened. If you play this right, TCU is going to look really good. And he played it perfect. And yeah, then they came in, and I was texting Caleb's laptop, all the details, and I drop off. They stayed at the Hyatt, and I dropped off the envelope of tickets, and they just some walking down, and they sat next to us, front row, student section, and there was like 2 minutes left in the game, and I like turned to Caleb, I'm like, "Hey, like if we win, like y'all want to like come back like to the locker room?" And they're like, "Sure." And I was like, "All right, I'll like get you guys back there." I did not think that I was gonna be able to get them back there. I was like, you know what? Like this is one of those things where it's like you just got to risk it, right?
So might as well.
Storm the court. I'm running. I celebrate for a bit, and then I'm like, "All right, where's Thomas? Thomas Monaco. He's the ops guy for basketball." I find him, like, "Hey, like Storm Chasers are here. Like, would love to have them like come to locker room." Yeah. And then he said yes. I'm like, okay, good, because I just told him that they were gonna come back. But yeah, all worked out. Got them back there. There's that great photo of all of us. But it was funny though, because we like walk in there and everyone's saying hi, and it's dead silent. And then Rowan just like gives this speech. He's like, he's like, after this win, like y'all can beat anyone in the country. Which I mean, KU, that was the last game that KU lost. So there you go. But yeah, I mean, definitely top 5 day of my life. Yeah.
Oh, it was once. We tweeted out the little like running emoji. No, it was a storm emoji with the guy running, which storm chasers in emoji language.
Yes.
And
thanks for explaining it to the old man.
Sorry for the older viewers who don't understand emoji language. And we started sending it out, and everyone like that point, that game versus KU, everyone was excited for it. But once you hear that Barstool storm chasers were coming, the intensity went up tenfold. It was insane. The student buy-in, like anyone who was on the fence, that pushed to the edge. And I think the coolest thing about it all was they've gone to so many schools, Indiana, where else have they gone? Providence, all these other bigger basketball schools. I think the coolest part for us when we were witnessing it was Jeremiah Donati and Victor Boschini actually went up and thanked them for being there. And like they're used to having to struggle to get in, having to sneak in. Instead, the athletic director and the chancellor of the school are thanking you for being there. Like that's the TCU difference right there.
Exactly.
It's like we're not your usual big brand athletic department. We're TCU. It's like family. It's a feeling you're not going to get. A family. There you go. It's a family environment from the top down.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That's awesome. Cool. And I think that speaks to the uniqueness of TCU, Austin, like you said. But I wonder, is this momentum going to carry over to 2022? Do you think? Like the student excitement, the hype around basketball, is that all going to come back next year? When I see
CBS putting us at number 10, TCU students, when you give them that kind of attention early on, we don't know how to handle ourselves quite properly. I mean, the hype's going to be there early, and I'm excited. I don't know what it's going to be like from a student perspective. Me and Dawson obviously won't be there, not going to win with these finals, but next year is going to be a very interesting year for TCU. Hope they do well, but the student section, they're going to come in full force, especially after how last season ended. They're going to come ready.
Yeah, I was talking to Jamie this weekend, and I said, you guys need to make the student section a little bit bigger. So the answer is yes. And I think that's less like to do like with us and more so with the just where TCU basketball is headed. Because none of this happens like without all of like if they don't win games, no one comes. So it's like, it's like nice to say, it's like, oh, like we helped out. But it's like at the end of the day, like it's a symbiotic thing, right? And if TCU didn't play well, students wouldn't come. And same thing with like the marketability of the players, right? If the players weren't so outgoing and so just awesome to just kind of just like be around, it wouldn't be like that. But everyone's coming back, and I think I think it's going to be so special, especially, if top 10 or top 15,
if those dreams come true.
Exactly.
Right?
All that matters,
one shining moment.
Yeah.
Be the final team in that video.
All that matters is what happens at the end of the season, but having a number in the single digits next to your name in the preseason, that makes it a little bit better.
It just gives you a little third-party validation, which is, you can't
always nice.
live off of that, but it's, it's
a
nice.
nice little boost. So finals week, by the time this is airing, you will have made it through one way or another.
Knock
finals
on wood,
week,
yes.
Knock on wood, successful. Both of you are graduating seniors. What's next?
Yeah, I'm working at Barstool Sports in New York City and their headquarters.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll be there. Yeah.
And then I'm currently, as this episode is airing, in the process of trying to land a spot at ESPN Chicago. Being from Chicago and the sports city that is, I just wanted to get back there and be able to experience it in some way, shape, or form. I've loved being in DFW, especially covering everything TCU has done and getting a chance to see how the Rangers are covered, Mavs, everything. But just want to get back to Chicago and probably start off there for a little bit. And who knows, maybe I come back to Fort Worth and do something here. Hopefully, maybe the Big 12 Network, if that becomes a thing.
Ooh,
that'd be fun.
That'd be nice.
Really
Go hang out
nice.
with DeMar DeRozan for a little while, though.
I will. By this time, the Bulls will definitely be eliminated. So I'll hang out. He'll have plenty of free time.
Him and Alex Caruso hanging out, Chicago Bulls. All right, thanks, guys. I appreciate you coming on the podcast, talking like you did. This has been another episode of Talking Frogs podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Plunkett. Thank you so much for giving it a listen. If you listen wherever podcasts are found, or for watching it on the YouTube channel or on frogstoday.com, where right now you can sign up for just $1. Thank you. That's all I've got.
Richard's rainwater.
Richard's
drink it.
Thank you for the promo.
Go Frogs.
Go Frogs. I'll talk to you next time.